Now, the police ministry revealed in a parliamentary reply that IPID has a backlog of 15,000 investigations into allegations of crime by police officers. Gauteng is the province with the second highest number of outstanding investigations against police officers. However, it is the leading province in rape by a police officer. It also leads the other provinces by far when it comes to police corruption. Executive Director, Accountability and Public Governance Division at OUTA, Advocate Stefanie Fick, joins me now. Advocate Fick, a very good afternoon to you and thank you so much for your time. I firstly want to get your reaction, I beg your pardon, around these numbers. I mean, this was revealed by the police ministry earlier, saying that IPID's backlog is at 15,000 investigations. Your reaction as OUTA?
I think it should worry, everybody. If you think about the backlog of that amount of cases, if we take into account what IPID is supposed to do. So IPID is supposed to investigate, the South African Police Service. If there was deaths in their custody, corruption allegations, and also if one considers the problems we have with corruption in the country, not just in the police service, a lot of departments, but specifically in the police service, also considering that we are struggling with a high crime rate. And if you put all of that together, I really think the hair on my head stands up. And one has to find out where the problem lies.
Especially when, we've just been speaking earlier on, around the trust deficit in communities. What does this then, when you look at these numbers and it is broken down into various provinces, what does this say then in terms of trust in police officers that are supposedly investigating your own case and not having a handle on these very serious charges?
I think you can't... I actually want to say I don't think that there's a trust deficit. I think that there's no trust. Communities should be able to firstly trust law enforcement to make sure that crime is reduced or crime is, that there's no crime. And then you have to believe and hope that if a policeman commits a crime, that there is a unit that will be able to investigate and then that there's ultimately actions that is taken against policemen, because we all need to trust our law enforcement. And I think stats like this does not help communities' trust or in the police's ability to look after their best interest.
What also is of concern, and this, Stefanie, came out also during that particular parliamentary briefing, is the fact that IPID remains understaffed. And it has been the case for a while. I think we heard something of a similar nature in January. And what was equally shocking is that not a lot has been done to make sure that, IPID is capacitated on that front, although we do understand that it has enlisted around 6 retired detectives. But do you think there is an issue here also where it speaks to political will?
I have to agree with you. I looked at their annual report for 2024-2025, and what I saw there was there's 398 permanent positions, but only 176 investigators for the 9 provinces in order to investigate. So I actually want to say to you, no wonder that there's such a big backlog. And then you have to ask, their budget was cut by 30 million. So that also, it cuts off departments' heads if they are not funded properly. So coming back to the political will, if you look at priorities, is there political will in order to address corruption in the police department if you are not going to fund and capacitate the, IPID in order to do what they are supposed to do?
And to what extent do you think this information and these stats are indicative to, what many have been criticizing in terms of, is this a police watchdog that actually can remain independent and can actually work optimally to make sure that those that are found, against the law are held to account?
It's an extremely difficult question to answer because I think, firstly, IPID, in terms of their legislation, it all comes from the Constitution. So the Constitution expects us to have a department, organization, entity that can investigate the police. So you need police to investigate the police, which makes sense. But if you are not going to give them the funds in order to do their job, if you are not going to give them the resources they need, they will always be underperforming. So if you think about, the high crime rate, if you are not going to capacitate and give enough resources to the police, for example, to also just investigate crime on the ground, then you will not solve the high crime rate. If you don't fix the NPA's resources, you will never be able to prosecute the individuals that's responsible. And that all comes back to, the allocation of budget that is basically controlled by, the politicians and etc. So the question is, how independent is, for example, although the NPA should be independent, how independent are they if they don't have control over their budget? Well, they have control over their budget, but they can only control the amount of finances they get from the fiscus. And the same with IPID. IPID is in a position, if one speaks about the independence, is that the executive is nominated by the minister, but there is a parliament portfolio that will confirm that appointment. But then again, you can have the best person in that executive director position. If he is not helped and if he's not resourced in order to do his job, next year we're going to hear that there are 20,000 cases, have a backlog of 20,000 cases, and the situation is not going to be resolved.
Stefanie, thank you so much for your time. Really do appreciate your analysis. Executive Director, Accountability and Public Governance Division at OUTA, Advocate Stefanie Fick, there for us.